Well, hi again, it's another week and it's another chapter of Where Did Your Heart Go? So without any further ado, let's get on with chapter 3. Although Charlie answered most of the texts and tweets, she felt drawn to the diary lying open on her bed. After clearing all the damp tissues away in the bin, she put her pyjamas on and snuggled under her duvet, preparing for a late night of reading. This diary had her hooked. It was like reading a really good book, with the added twist that you knew the characters. Thursday the 7th of January 1988 continued. As I got changed into my swimming suit, I noticed that there were another couple of girls in the changing room, and as I wandered onto the poolside, I watched them emerge from the doorway wearing bikinis. My heart fell as I realised they were both older than me by perhaps a year or two. James would never notice me now with them as competition. A couple of guys appeared from the other changing room, and I saw that the one was in the year above me at school. He was called Jason, and most of the girls fancied him. I have to admit that he was attractive, with his dark hair that flopped over his one eye. The other guy I later found out was called Matthew, and he was 20 and doing the course as part of his lifeguard training. As I saw James appear from the poolside office door, I felt my breath leave me. He looked gorgeous as he came over to us. "Hi, thanks for coming. My name is James and I will be your instructor." After the introductions, I slipped into the water and we ordered a series of lengths in each of the different strokes, and then James told us that we needed to learn side stroke. "Matthew, can you show everyone the side stroke?" James asked. Matthew nodded and swam the length of the pool. I tried to watch, but I found I kept staring at James to see what he was doing. Then it was my turn, and I soon found my rhythm and got the hang of this new stroke. "That was good, everyone, but I think Stephanie has mastered it the best. Would you all show us a length on each side?" he asked. I nodded and felt the blush flood my cheeks with colour as I took up off the pool. After class, we went upstairs and James handed out some information for us to learn for the following week. As he handed the sheet to me, it shook slightly in his grasp, and as my hands were shaking so much, I dropped it. Kneeling down to pick it up, James did the same thing, and I found myself staring into his blue eyes as we both held the opposite edges of the paper in our fingers. "Sorry," he said, as he let go. "It's okay, my fault," I stuttered, as we both stood up. What did that look mean? Crossing the car park, I turned to look back and I saw James in the window, looking out. He raised his hand and waved. I looked around, but I was alone, so it must have been meant for me. So I waved back and then hurried home to relive the evening in my dreams. Friday the 8th of January. The alarm dragged me reluctantly from my dreams of swimming pools and James. At least it was the last day of the week, and I had a busy weekend planned, and also lots to talk about with Sarah. I hurried to catch up with her as they had already started up the road. "Hi girls, thank God it's Friday," I said as I joined them. "Yeah, so much homework to get through already. Never mind what they might give us today," Amanda moaned. "Do any of you fancy going to Gareth's party tomorrow night?" June asked, looking directly at me. "No thanks," I replied. "Sarah?" "Thanks, but I'll have to check with my mum first and let you know tomorrow." "OK," June said, "I've got my eye on his best mate John, and he's not going to be able to resist me in that dress I bought yesterday." "Well, he'll be a guy of strong willpower if he does," Amanda said. "I've seen the dress. Well, what little there is of it." As we split into our different groups, Sarah and I to history, whilst Amanda and June went to French. "So what happened last night?" Sarah asked as we took our seats. "Nothing much really, but it was good and I think we should go swimming again tomorrow evening." "OK, I didn't fancy Gareth's party anyway. Apart from John, some of his friends are such dickheads," Sarah said. Saturday the 9th of January. I arranged to meet Sarah in town at 4, so we still had time to look around the shops on our way to the pool. Sarah showed me the dress that June had bought from Eclipse at the bottom of town. "Christ, there's not much of it," I said as we saw it in the window. "I know, but she does look good in it," Sarah said. "We watched her try it on." "I bet. She puts the rest of us in the shade in comparison," I replied, thinking of her long golden blonde hair and fantastic curvy figure. "I know," Sarah replied. "I phoned her earlier and said I wasn't going tonight." "Come back to mine if you want," I said. "You can stay over." "Sounds good to me," she replied. "Now come on, let's get into that pool before you pull me over in your impatience." I looked up at the window where James had stood and waved from the other night. The memory made me smile as we had continued across towards the entrance. Once inside, I put my bikini on, and then Sarah and I went into the pool area together. My heart sank. He was nowhere to be seen as we slipped into the water and started to swim. I was too upset to even say anything. Then while we were resting at the deep end, Sarah nudged me. "Is that James over there?" she asked, gesturing to the entrance to the male changing room. "Fuck, it is James," I stammered, as I suddenly felt all dizzy and faint. We both watched as he walked up the side of the pool. His trunks hugged his tight ass, and I tried to breathe, deep, irregular breaths. My heart was thumping in my chest so much that I thought I was going to pass out. My knuckles started to turn white as I gripped the side of the pool to stop from going under. My legs beneath me felt like jelly as I tried to keep them moving. James strode towards the diving board and climbed the steps to take up position. I was transfixed at the sight of him as he took 3 steps to the edge and dived into the water, hardly even rippling it with his entry. I watched as he swam the entire length beneath the water and then surfaced at the shallow end. He swam a couple more lengths at speed, and then I watched in slow motion as he headed towards us. "He's coming over." "I know. What shall we do? Stay or swim away?" I replied in a panic. "Stay, you idiot. Although perhaps I should leave," Sarah said. "No, don't leave," I replied. And then he was holding on to the side, just inches away from me. I felt sure he could feel the heat from my body penetrating through the cool water of the pool. "Hi, Steph," he said. "Good to see you again so soon." "Hi, James. This is my best friend Sarah," I replied before my voice started to shake. "Hi, Sarah. Good to meet you," James replied as he smiled at her before returning his gaze to me. "Do you guys fancy a race down the pool?" James asked. "I'll give you a head start." A cheeky grin lit his face. "Okay," we both said. "You better start us off then." "Ready, steady, go," he said, as we both pushed off against the side and crawled down the pool. I was ahead of Sarah as I was the stronger swimmer, but then as I turned to return to the deep end, I could hear James behind me. I tried to double my efforts, but he passed me by a body length before we reached the edge. Grabbing the side next to him, I was breathing deeply from the exertions and the closeness of his body next to mine. We waited a couple of seconds for Sarah to reach out and take hold. "I think you better give me an extra head start next time," she gasped. "Can you show us another dive?" I asked, as it gave me a chance to admire him from a bit further away. "Sure," he replied. I watched him pull himself out of the pool and walk towards the board. On the way, he stopped to chat to the other lifeguard on duty, and whatever was said made them both laugh. I watched as he took to the board and this time lined up with his back towards the pool. The other lifeguard gave him a quick nod, which must have been the all-clear signal, as he executed a perfect backflip into the pool. As he swam back towards us, he ducked under the water, and I felt a tug on my foot as he dragged me under and started to tickle me. I pulled away. The shock of his touch on my quivering body was immense. Returning spluttering to the surface, I waited for James to surface and playfully splashed some water at him. Sarah joined in and we larked around. "We've got to go now," I said. "Well, I hope I'll see you again on Thursday night," James replied, smiling at me. "Hope to see you again soon," he said to Sarah. "Perhaps I'll bring a friend with me next time I swim. 2 against 1 is an unfair water fight." "Bye, James," I said as we swam back down to the shallow end to get out. I resisted looking back to see if he was watching, but Sarah couldn't. Giggling, we entered the cubicles next to each other. "He was watching you," she said. I just smiled to myself. We walked home to mine and after tea headed for my room. "So what do you think?" I asked Sarah. "Do you think he likes me? Do you think I stand a chance?" "He is really nice and friendly. Perhaps he does like you," Sarah replied. Yawning, Charlotte put the diary aside. It felt strange to be reading her mum's thoughts and feelings from when she was 16 years old, yet at the same time she knew exactly how she felt, as it was the same when she had first seen Craig at school. He was in her year at school, but it seemed that all of a sudden he had started to style his hair, and being in the final couple of years they were allowed to wear what they liked, and he stood out in his jeans. He walked past her while she stood at the lockers, and then one day he had stopped and leaned against the row and spoke to her. Well, that's it for chapter 3. Hope you're getting engrossed in the story. Don't forget, if you do want to read ahead, you can grab your own copy now. It's available on amazon.com and amazon.co.uk. Just search for Where Did Your Heart Go by Audrina Lane. Anyway, take care and speak to you all soon. Bye bye.